Welcome to our gospel presentation this evening. So tonight's promised to be quite practical. The budget, budgeting, and the Bible, and James will present this to us in a minute. So if you just bow your heads, I'll offer a word of prayer. Our loving Heavenly Father, we come before you enfolded in your Son, thanking you for this day that you've given us. Especially, we'd like to thank you for your guiding word, the Bible, from which we can gain practical insight and help and advice in every part of our lives. We thank you for our abilities and intellect that we're able to consider the things that you've contained in your word, and we ask for your help to be with our presenter, James, and help him unfold some insights for all of us to be that can be helpful and encouraging from your word. We thank you for the hope we have in your Son. We pray that you'll send him to this earth soon. Amen. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Ben. That was my power entrance. It's my power pose. Okay, so we're going to talk about the budget, budgeting, and the Bible. But very importantly, because I do this for a job, and you can sue me if I say something that doesn't relate to your personal financial circumstances or your personal financial position, I'll ask you to read the disclaimer. Good. We'll take it as read. It's just a lot of stuff which basically says most of what financial guys say is rubbish. So we'll move on from there. So what I want to do, what my plan was tonight, so for all of you at home, this is if I'm talking to a client who might pay me between, I don't know, $3,000 and $12,000 a year to look after their complicated financial needs, we will go through a series of steps right now to try to mainly do the following. Work out, do I have any bad debt? I've got to get rid of it. Do I have any good debt? How can I make my repayments more affordable? Do I have assets that can work in a more efficient way for me? Do I have to get rid of liabilities? How can I improve my income? How can I reduce my expenses? But most importantly, how can I pay less? Oh yes, that's right. Good on you, Zoe, the youngest one here, the most financially conscious and aware. All right, so every year we have a thing called a budget, and what happens in the budget is a treasurer comes out and he makes announcements. So everyone, like in my job, rushes out to try to implement these policies, but they aren't announcements until they become what, Kayla? It's a big word, but legislation. Yes, she got it at home. She's just amazing. She's on fire. So we don't plan for something that's not a law. That is just ridiculous. So that's what we'll go through tonight. Okay, I love Jackie. Money is not the most important thing in the world. Love is. Jackie, that's for you. So here's a little bit of financial love for you all. Firstly, the budget. I'm going to just scoot through this so the oldies at home will go, yes, James, tell us all about it. How can we get an extra $1 a week in pension? Now, $1 per week in pension is almost as important as getting $1 per, listen to this, year in pension. Because if you get an age pension when you're over age 67 and you qualify, it's not the money. Like even Kayla couldn't afford to live off $1 a year, but it's the other things that might accompany that. And if there was oldies here, Ben's not too far away, so we might talk about some of the ways that you can squirrel away an extra $1 in age pension. So firstly, we'll talk about personal tax stuff. Ben and Lisa, bad news. We miss out on the $700 tax offset. Baddy, you lose that as well. So most families where mums and dads are working are $1,400 worse off. Boo! Boo to you, Gem Chalmers. So we need to bring forward deductions. What are deductions? Okay, so when we lodge a tax return, we have a thing called when we earn, Kayla. Right, I know you love this bit. You love this bit of the financial equation. When we earn money, it's called what? Starting with an I.
Interest.
That's it. I'm not asking you any more questions. Right. And because Zoe's got 2 out of 2, we're going to give Zoe the mic. Income. Yes. So what we do is we look at our income, and then if we've got some tax deductions. So as a nurse, what are some things that you might be able to claim as a tax deduction?
My work shoes.
Yes, your hot white Doc Martens that you stomp around the wards on. What else can you claim?
Uniform.
You can. And what do you do to your uniform?
You wash it.
So what can you claim then?
Washing.
Oh, whatever, just claim it all. I'm not an accountant, right? So all care, no responsibility. Yeah, so we have income, we have deductions, and whatever the difference is, we have to pay tax on. And the tax that we pay depends upon our level of earning, because if we earn underneath 18,500 or thereabouts, then we have to pay tax at a certain amount, up to 45, tax at a certain amount, over 200, tax at a certain amount. And all of these amounts regularly change, so it's a good idea to see a guy like me. So if we can, what we hope to do sometimes to take advantage of tax laws is bring forward some deductions. And an example of this might be, if you have an investment property, you can bring forward your interest payments. Or if you even have a mobile phone for work, you might be able to pay 6 months worth of your bills, right? So if you pay $100, pay $600, and that covers you for another 6 months, but you can claim it in the year that you paid it. I want to talk about another really important element as we get older on minimising taxes, and that is concessional contribution caps. Now, when you work, aside from receiving income, Zoe, what else does your employer pay you? You get income, but they pay you something else. What is super?
Superannuation.
What is it?
It's for when you retire.
Yeah, you get when you
It's got a
retire.
little bit of stuff on that.
All right, so...
You can't touch it too.
Yeah, so from little things, big things grow. Super. We put a little bit of moolah away for a rainy day, which means we can't spend the money today. But then, as we get older, this little bit of moolah becomes a very big retirement nest egg. I have to break it to you. The government's never going to give you an age pension. It won't happen. Boo-hoo. Work hard, save your money. But saving your money means you have to miss out on spending some. Yeah, bad news for you, Pop. Bad news for you. So, we can put in $27,500 a year even if our employer doesn't give us our super. So someone that's self-employed like me, I can put money into a superannuation fund up to $27,500 and I get a tax deduction. So let's say I earn $42,500 and I put in $27,500. What I've done is I've reduced my tax rate from 32 cents in the dollar down to whatever it is, 19. Now that's a big difference, right? So anyone that says to you, I think you should have a look at these shares, Kayla. They're really amazing. They will go up, they will double. In 5 years, they will double. No one knows that. No one. But what I do know is this. The government wants its share of tax. So if you can find a way to reduce how much tax you're paying, that equals a return. Now, why do people make predictions about the growth of stocks or whether we're going to have a recession or not? There's one primary reason why people give predictions. It's because we ask them to. So they feel obligated. Don't ask, don't tell. Anyone that try to predict the future in finances, they're going to be wrong or lucky. I went to a planning conference once and there was this great American presenter. He was awesome. So he was talking about what happens when people retire at age 67 and they've built up this superannuation nest egg, and over time they're drawing that money down. So that we want to know how long it will last before it runs out. Okay? And offhandedly he said, well, God lasted a 5-year plan. And I looked up and I thought, that's a very odd thing to say. Because as a financial planner, we're talking about 5, 10, 15. Sometimes people will spend 30 odd years in retirement. So we have to work out a way to make the money last. Went up to him afterwards. I said, are you a Christian? Like, why did you say that? He goes, well, I am a Christian. I said, I totally agree with that. No one knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Sufficient unto the days is the evil thereof. That's what Jesus tells us. Okay. Here's another important thing. Government co-contributions. Does anyone in the front row earn over $42,000? Right. You do not. You wish. Actually, I should have said $42,000 per month. Then you would just miss out, Charlotte. But if it's $42,000 a year, listen carefully. If you save $20 a week and put it into super and you lodge your tax return, the government says, well done, Zoe. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. They put $500 extra into superannuation. Put in 1,000, the government gives you 500. Tax-free, 50% return on investment, possibly in 2 months, even less, depending upon when you visit your accountant. All right, so in terms of personal tax, there was no tough calls. There was some discussion about negative gearing going, it hasn't gone. Main residence exemptions, when you have an investment and you sell it, the government wants to get a hold of it, right? So if you've got an investment property that you make a profit from, and you've owned it for less than 12 months, whatever profit becomes taxable. So it's added to your what, Kayla, if you make a profit, a capital gain? Yes. The lessons are penetrating. All right, let's talk about business taxation. Really nothing in it for business. Business lost because we used to be able to claim heaps of money as an instant asset write-off. So it's $150,000 up until June 30. So I could buy a NIL 200 cruiser with a caravan canopy on top. I could fully load the thing. And if it's for work purposes, I can claim that as a tax deduction. But you can't do that from 1st of July, it's only $20,000. So have a guess at what is happening at the moment with all of these tradies, because they're missing out on a benefit, right? They're going to get a really good benefit. Write it all off this year versus not being able to next year. You can still claim it just takes you longer. What do you think the tradies are doing? They're bringing forward their decisions to buy new utes, right? Because they can write them off. What do you think happens when everyone wants to buy a particular product in a short time frame?
Yes.
The prices go through the roof. Now, what will happen after July, the prices will come back. Zoe, you were doing so well.
No, that's the product.
Okay, well then 25 push-ups. Okay, so we've spoken a little bit about superannuation. All you wealthy people have got $3 million in your super funds. So in your super fund, if that's husband and wife, $3 million each, it's now going to be taxed at double the normal rate inside of super. Boo-hoo, $6 million, 15% tax after 1.9 million. So let's talk about superannuation more specifically. You can have from July 1, I think. Yeah, July 1. 1.9 million. And if it's in super, but you're over a certain age, you can take some of that money every week or fortnight. It's called a pension. It's got nothing to do with Centrelink, nothing to do with the government, right? You can take that as a pension and you receive that money tax-free. It's income, but you've already paid the tax. So you don't have to pay it when you receive it. But far more importantly, you're earning on 1.9 million because it's an investment. So, Kayla, 1.9 million, earning rates 10%. How much am I going to earn in 1 year? 190,000. Beautiful. Now that's a lot of moolah. So that's tax-free. That earning is tax-free. Don't have to pay tax on that. And if you took it all out as a pension, it goes into the family bank account, no tax. The extra 1.1 million is taxed at 15%. Anything over 3 million is going to be taxed at a figure of 30%, which is still much cheaper than the top marginal tax rate, which is 45% plus Medicare. Welcome. And we've talked about some of those. Oh, now this is a really cool thing. So if you are able to put money into superannuation and get a tax deduction for it, but over the preceding 4 years, you've put in less, you can now you have a look on your MyGov, and I'm going to show you all how to do it because I know you're so keen on superannuation. You'll take that look at MyGov, and then you'll be able to put that total amount in. For some people this year, it could mean $100,000 they can put into super and get a tax deduction for it. But what's the point of that? What if you only earn $50,000? So that means you're putting more into super, and you have to pay tax when you put money into super, I think. Yep, that's 15%. But if you sell a property and you make a capital gain of $100,000, you can fully offset your gain by making tax-deductible contributions into superannuation, for example. Social Security, there was an increase in rent support. higher job seeker payments for over 55s, and increase in working age payments. So some of these increases have caused a bit of nervousness, because with extra income, there is a capacity for extra spending, and if there's extra spending, that might lead to increased inflation. So if we have a look at winners and losers, the winners are companies, Aussie battlers, high income earners and investors. The losers are middle income earners, so most of Australia, because they lose the low middle income tax offset. The main reason why that group are winners is because nothing happened in the budget that impacts them. Bit strange, isn't it? All right, now Jackie, I didn't quite finish his quote, did I? Money is not the most important thing in the world. Love is. Fortunately, he says, I love money. So that's a big cross for you, Jackie. We don't want to think like that. I just thought it was funny. Let's talk about inflation for a bit and what's happening in the economy today. So the Reserve Bank has a discussion and sets this thing called a cash rate. What that means, I don't know. It's very complicated. But what the banks do is when they see that the cash rate increases, it gives them an opportunity to claim that their costs increase by the same amount as what the Reserve Bank increases. And so they tend to increase a variable home loan rate by the same amount. Reserve Bank will meet this week and we'll find out Monday or Tuesday that interest rates have probably gone up again. Why? Because the Reserve Bank has got one primary job. 90% of its job is it has to keep inflation between 2 and 3%, and it's currently around 7%. So if the cash rate is at 3.8% and we have a home loan, we want to think about, well, what is our bank's margin if our home loan is 5.38%? So that's one of the lenders who we use. I'm not giving anyone advice, but if you're paying more than that, you might want to come and see me. So, Carla, if your mortgage has gone up over 5.3, let me know. We'll deal with it. But there are some banks that, especially if you come out of a fixed loan, they will put you on a standard variable rate, which is mid to high 6s, and early next week will be in the 7s. So you can see that, it's quite a big difference, isn't it? 1.5% or 1.25% on a $100,000 loan is $1,250 every year. Now, considering the average loan in Adelaide is about $490,000, that's about $6,000 a year. Every year. Most loans are 30 years, so it's $180,000 you can potentially save by shopping around. Shop around. Banks aren't loyal to you. So the issue for you is being loyal to your finances. Let's just spend a moment talking about house prices. So the median house price in Adelaide metropolitan area is $650,000. It's been reasonably steady over the past 12 months. There's been quite a spike in the eastern seaboard. Auction clearance rates are increasing, which is good for people that have a home. Not so good for people looking to buy. Auction clearance rates going up means there's more competition. So we had an auction just around the corner from our place on Saturday. The property sold for 30% more than what the advertised price was at auction. It was, nice property, 1,200 square metres, sort of cottagey looking, stucco rendered, nice big entertainment area out the back. No pool though, but that's a good outcome. Now I've got this graph up just to show you. See the line in red? We've had 11 increases in 12 months or so, but just have a look at how spread some of the other increases have been. So when you, comparatively, if we're using sort of 0 as a starting point, we haven't seen rate increases of this trajectory ever. So that has to come at some cost. And the question the smart economists in this room might be asking is, well, how can we keep ratcheting up by a little bit, but it doesn't seem to impact on anything? Maybe we should put interest rates up a bit higher, a bit more quickly, to see if that stops people spending. Because inflation is about people buying stuff, goods and services, and that's probably a fair argument. Okay, a couple of other things happened this week, which will definitely impact on inflation. So the the minimum wage rate has gone up by 8%, which is a lot. A little bit of catch up there. So as an adult, your minimum wage will be $23.23 per hour. So for awards, that was arbitrated to increase at 5.75%. So I just want to spend a little bit of time trying to piece together how banks assess loans and how the Reserve Bank pricing increases affects our home finances. So what is the best interest rate? If you came to visit James right now, what is the best interest rate I can get for you? It was 3 slides ago. 5.38%. Right. Everyone is so awake. This is great. Okay. Now, when you go to a bank for a loan, they cannot assess that loan at 5.38% because the government department says no. So after the Royal Commission, it was determined that most banks now have to assess at a rate of 8.75. What does that mean, assess? So I want to go for a loan, and the bank manager says, how much you want to borrow, over what loan period, this is our interest rate. And you say, oh yeah, great, $100,000, 20 years, 5.38, repayments are $410, I can afford that. But when a bank assesses it, they assume not a rate of 5.38, but a rate of 8.75%. Because the law says they have to allow for variation. Now, what that has created is this thing called mortgage prisoners. So mortgage prisoners basically mean this. You've been successfully paying off your interest rate, your repayments every month on your mortgage. You've come out of a fixed loan, but because that rate increase is so high and the way that the banks assess is so different to when you applied for that loan 2, 3, 4 years ago, you can't do anything about the loan, you're just stuck with it. So we have to come up with some better ideas on how to help mortgage prisoners. But I think anecdotally, if you do any shopping, you'll know this. The price of food has gone up. If you pay the bills at home, power has gone up, gas has gone up. Petrol, thankfully, recently has come down. I'm not happy about that. I invest in a company that sells oil. So I was happy when oil was $100 US a barrel, got down to 72. Unhappy with oil prices being low. I think oil prices should be $2 and then I can retire. But other things such as groceries, my florist. So I met up with my florist 2 weeks ago and she said, all Kat's florist, that the price of her flowers at wholesale has doubled in the last 12 months. So that means if we buy a $100 bouquet 12 months ago, we're going to get double the amount of flowers compared to what we do now. So, if you get some flowers from the barges, don't think we're being stingy, but flowers have gone up. Okay, what is inflation? Jolis, what's inflation?
Is the costs going up?
Yeah. Let's do some maths, right? I'll do some quick maths. For us to assess inflation, we have to go back 12 months. So we've got an inflation rate of 7.1%. So what that means is 12 months ago, if we have $1, our buying power was $1. But if we project 12 months forward, with inflation being 7.1, our buying power is no longer $1 because the cost of goods has gone up by 7.1%. So our dollar is now only worth 92.9 cents. So this is difficult when you think about folks who are retired because they might have their funds invested in a bank account, which is paying them 0.01% if they're lucky, okay? So if inflation's up at 7.1, they're getting 0.01 on their money. It means that they're having to draw down on their capital just to pay for the groceries, to pay for their utilities, to pay for council rates. So it is quite a problem. Will the increases in minimum wage and the increase in award wages cause inflation? The answer to that is obviously yes, because people will have more money. Will there be other consequences? Yes. If I'm an employer and I'm having to pay someone 8.1% extra. And by the way, as at the 1st of July, everyone's superannuation will go up from 10.5% this year to 11%. Following year, it's 11.5%, then it goes up to 12%, right? So when employers are paying this, even though we don't see superannuation in our bank account, it's a cost to an employer. You'd be naive to think that employers will be battling and might have to reduce hours for workers or lay some workers off. Or if you drive past King William Road, you'll know there's a builder called Phil Mary Homes on the western side of the road. He went under 2 weeks ago, very sadly, which meant a lot of trades that he's done work for won't be getting paid. Okay, now, workman. Oh, did I want to talk about this? No. I'm just wondering why my little computer isn't moving on to the next slide. So I'm going to have to, I think is my battery dead? No, it's not dead. It's me. Okay, so some challenges. I just want to spend, I'm just going to whiz through these last few slides just to give us a bit of theory. The main Bible lesson we have about managing our finances revolves around working hard, not being lazy, supporting a family, being prepared to save for a rainy day, and another way that guys like me talk about that is to delay gratification. Okay, he who loves pleasure will become poor. Whoever loves wine and oil, some versions just use luxuries in exchange for oil, will never be rich. And so really what it's saying here is if we like spending more than saving, then we're not gonna have a nest egg. I think it's not the easiest. Hey, welcome. And in conclusion, I'm only joking. I've got 5 minutes. So there's been quite a change in how we manage finances personally since the GFC. So prior to the GFC, which occurred March 2008, thereabouts, credit was really, really easy. So I'll give you 2 examples of where life has come a bit hard on the credit side. And then I'm going to circle around back to these 3 points here. Let's talk about HECS for a while. All right, no one's happy with HECS. Now, HECS in itself is a bill that's accrued to study at tertiary level. You repay it depending upon your level of income, and it's all done on your tax return. However, when we've had low inflation, it hasn't really moved much. I think the year before last it went up 1.6%. So there's no interest on HECS, but it is indexed. What you owe is indexed depending upon what the CPI is. This year it's gone up 7.1% as at the 1st of June. Now that is a big whack of money. Now of course some courses are more expensive than others. Some folks haven't earned quite enough to repay any of their HECS. Some folks will actually retire with a HECS debt. Now, that is pretty spooky. And I wasn't of the generation that had free education. I think I was one of the early adopters, but when I was studying, we could actually pay up front, and if we paid up front, we got a 25% discount. So if you were able to do that, you're pretty fortunate. I had a loan declined recently because a client had a pet. And you think, well, what? What do you mean they had a pet? So you have to disclose to a bank what you spend every month. And the bank has got certain parameters. And so we break it down to education costs, private or public, groceries, primary housing costs, car costs, utilities, medical and health, telecommunications. I'm just trying to think of some others. Insurances. And anyway, the banks are now looking at every bit of spending that people do in 6 months. It's all done electronically via a savings account or a credit card account. And if they spot something that a client hasn't disclosed, they get all antsy about it. So in the end, I said, look, the client just included. What happened was there was a pet insurance bill of like $12 a month. And So bank declines a loan. They should have told us about the pet insurance. Oh, really, man? So then we end up with a fight. Everyone gets angry, and then the client eventually, after 2 weeks of brawling, gets what they want. So lending has become harder. But for some of the folks who are sort of mid-20s, credit is still quite easy, because if you're at home and you don't have these costs, you might pay a little bit of board. It doesn't so much impact on how much you can borrow, either at interest-free or with credit card lend. The challenge is that with social media, I think we've become a little bit addicted as a society to brands and personalities that are promoting products, whether we need them or not, whether they're value for money or not. And the logos to us are important. Like we feel some type of value, even though there's no intrinsic value in it. So delaying gratification is important. What I'm saying is, if you've got a choice to buy a t-shirt at Target for $10, or to go to Harbour Town and get a Ralph Lauren second one where it's $50 marked down to $30, nice logo. What are you going to do? What will your choices be? So, all of the choices that we make about spending when we're young significantly impact our capacity to retire with a nest egg. Because if we put that $20 into super rather than on the t-shirt, that $20 equals thousands when we retire, owing to the magnificent effect of compound interest. All right, 3 points. 1, get paid what you're worth. So what does that mean? Well, it means if you've been in the same job for a while, you've probably got some skills, you've probably got some good performance reviews, you're probably good with people, and there is a war for talent. Some jobs just cannot be filled, so get paid what you're worth. Monitor what you spend. We'll look at that importantly, and then save. So these, for me, are the 3 keystone elements of building a sound financial future. By the way, Proverbs 27 verse 12 talks about delayed gratification. So just really interestingly, on people getting paid what they're worth, a lot of folks will say, yeah, I left my old job, didn't really like it, I got this new job, I get paid an extra per week, and they're stoked. People rarely leave their job because they're looking for more money, but they find that other employers are willing to pay them more because of the skills they have. Most often people will leave a job because of job satisfaction, lack of career progression, poor management, maybe disputes. Yeah, Woody Allen, love him. So if you can't see this at home, money is better than poverty, if only for financial reasons. Now, Trev, if you're in Ashford and you heard that, I hope that made your day. Hope you're going all right, mate. Who pays board? Who pays board? 1, 2. Who? Okay. Controversy has risen at Hyde Park. One of the Mansa kids pays heaps of board. I can see that she's cringing about it. The other, the nice one, pays nothing. Now, this is an obvious case of favouritism, which we are going to put out on the table. How much to pay? Okay.
Doesn't even know what an income is.
What?
Yeah. Okay, she doesn't know what income is fair, but she was the first one to put her hand up. I pay board. Oh, what a rip-off, man. I don't get anything back for this board. And Dad makes me feed a dog once a year and I can't stand it. All right, let's talk about board. Board is a really good discipline because it teaches you that stuff costs money. And in my view, parents are not helping their kids learn about finances unless they charge board. So for parents, here's a good rule of thumb. So your kid starts working, charge 1/3 for board. 1/3, set up a savings account for the kid, so they're forced compulsorily to save. 3, let them spend the other 1/3, right? Just keep it in thirds. It's nice and simple. Every time they start bragging about a pay increase, you put the board up. Very soon they'll stop bragging about pay increases and you'll never know. So kids, don't begrudge board, because often parents will actually find a way to give that back to you. It's teaching you a really important lesson. Teaches you that life is actually very expensive. I do not subscribe to the idea of parents buying kids' cars without a loan being repaid. I certainly don't subscribe to parents paying for kids' cars and then paying for their insurance and all the cost fuel, especially if the kids are working. You're teaching your children bad lessons, not good ones. So budgeting is just maths, right? So when I sit down and talk to my clients, I go through all of these expenses, and what we try to do is we try to allocate per month how much people are going to spend. Now this takes a bit of discipline, because to get a budget done correctly, you've got to go back 12 months and see the cost of every single bill that you're paying for every single month. Now it gets hard if you're paying for stuff in cash, because how do you allocate it? So if you're using cards that tell you what you've spent and where, it makes this job of forecasting really, really easy. So if I head over here, so finances stuff. We've spoken about board, right? You know, all the kids hate me, but anyway, parents, you might love me, even for a little while. We've spoken about income, we've been able to define that. So let's talk about saving and budgeting. We have to budget to save. So you'll note, see up here, I've got this little smiley account. All right, so this is our happy account. So I'm literally having a line which isn't about personal spending or restaurants or donations or gifts. It's deliberate that we're going to save a little bit every week or fortnight or month. So at the end of the year, we've got a pool of money. So if we know that our family holiday is going to cost $2,500, we're checking the credit card receipts that we received in January. Okay, it's only a couple of months ago, and we know that's what it costs. Well, from now, it means you need to save $100 a week to cover that cost. Try not to put it on credit card, because if you end up paying interest on credit cards, you're paying something like 24.99% or more, and that's a huge cost. Just another little thing about budgeting. So that little smiley account, I'd always encourage clients to establish a separate account, not part and parcel of the daily family budget. Now here's a little tip. Now I'm not saying that you should go to Rabobank, but I mentioned before that some retirees have got money just in an everyday access account. They're getting nothing for it. Well, for 4 months, at call, Rabobank, I noticed this week, offers 5.15%. So that's quite a rate. Now remember, the more interest you earn, the more tax you pay, because interest is what, Kayla?
5 point something.
No,
5.3.
no, but what is interest when you get it? It's...
Why is that in your income then?
It's income, yeah. Because it's
Thinking the number, I was like,
you're on fire. I think we need to be a bit fair on Kayla, because, you know, she's tormented about the excessive amount of board that she has to pay. All right, so let's have a look finally. Delayed gratification. All right, this is where we'll finish up tonight. As I mentioned, one of the significant changes in the last 12 months is the capacity to add extra superannuation over and above the concessional contribution cap, is what it's called in our game, CCC of 27,500. And that's how you do it. You just go into MyGov, go into super, manage, and then on the bottom one, fully carry forward concessional contributions. But if you need any further advice, what I'd say to you is sit down with a financial planner that you trust, and you can go through each of these things one step at a time. And one thing that's really important, if you're ever going to put money into super, money only goes into super when it's received by the superannuation fund. A lot of people will call me on June 29 or worse, June 30. Oh, Marge, how much do we put into super? Well, they don't reach me anymore because I go on holidays on June 29. I'm completely unavailable because I don't like those calls. Why? Because I've been telling them for years, get the money into super by the 20th of June. So then you know that your superannuation fund has received it. It's only received at the hands of the people that have to report on it. Okay, any questions about finance? So the takeaways: get paid what you're worth. Spend less than you earn. Save the rest and save it in a special account that you can use for another separate occasion, not linked with your family savings. Will there be a recession? Dunno. Anyone can predict it, and you'll probably be half right.
Thanks, James. Very topical note to end on. I remember the one we had to have, whether we liked it or not.
Yes.
So we could be, 50% either way. So our next gospel presentation is in the middle of the month, because we have our ecclesial camp this coming weekend, which is fantastic. So on June the 18th, at the same time, our topic is how to share your faith with others. So if you just bow your heads, I'll conclude with prayer. Our loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for your care towards us in our lives. We thank you for your Son. We thank you for his diligent example in providing for his disciples, and even the time when he paid his taxes through the miraculous coin in a fish. We are really appreciative that your word can be our guidebook to life, and that as we seek to follow your Son's example in the way we walk. We thank you for our healthy bodies, our active minds, and the way that we can participate in your plan and purpose with this earth by showing your gospel message in our hope and faith and actions. We ask that you'll be with us in the forthcoming week. We pray your kingdom might come. In Christ Jesus, we ask all these things. Amen. Thanks, James. I thought when you were saying the Bible said